Zander Fryer. He's going to jump on here because we're going to do a Facebook Live to his group as well. So here we go. This is Zander Fryer. He's come to one of my Perfect Life workshops before, but he's also going to be our first guest coach for the Perfect Life Workshop program. And he's also going to be coaching at my Work Life Mastery program very soon. And he's going to be on January 15th, Early to Rise radio podcast. So Zander, welcome.
Thank you. And while you're welcoming me to your audience, I want to point out that you're actually live with my audience right now. So hey, how's it going, everybody in the Six Figure Group? This is Craig Ballantyne, the CEO and founder of Perfect Life. And I mean, I could probably go on with a list of like 80 other accolades and everything like that. But
author of the Perfect Day Formula is probably the most important thing.
Yep,
for
sure. Author of the Perfect Day Formula, one of my personal mentors and friends. So thank you for doing this. But
I mean, great.
Yeah, I've got a lot of really interesting questions that I think everybody...
Ask me questions I've never been asked before. That's the best thing. That's what makes a great interview.
Well, so this is, first thing I kind of want to give everybody is just, what's one thing that most people don't know about you?
Oh, man. I love looking in people's recycling bins to see what kind of cereal and what company they order their pizza from. I just love doing that. So when I walk my dog, you see the...
So is this like the number one tip for success if you
No, it's not. It's just I'm a very curious person. And so you and I were just doing a podcast and we were talking about, how when you were younger, you were a curious person. And curiosity really, really is an important part of being successful, because if you're not curious, you're not going to go out and learn. And if you're not going to learn, you're going to regress and you're going to struggle, and you're not going to build a morning routine. You're not going to build success habits. You're not going to be able to go and have another career. And you know what? I was actually just reading a really, really cool book. I can't remember exactly which one it was because I'm reading a lot of books right now, but it's talking about, actually it's like benefiting from your dark side or something. And it was talking about how...
Is this going to be appropriate for
yes,
really
I
don't know where this is going.
It talks about how it's almost like everyone should start another career at age 50.
Interesting.
Because we've spent all this time in one area and we're kind of like, okay, we're kind of bored with it. We should move on to a new career.
Yeah.
And especially in this day and age when you're living to 85, 95, 120, and who knows how much longer we'll be able to live with great medical advancements. There's nothing wrong with starting a new career at 50. And you started a new career at 27, which is still pretty young, but it's all because as you explained on our podcast, is that you were able to overcome limiting beliefs and then commit to learning. And then what was the third thing?
Oh man, overcome limiting beliefs, commit to learning, and taking ownership over your life. Really just like taking full ownership over your life rather than blaming and blaming other people. Yeah,
and so if you're 45 or 40 or 50 or 55 and you're like, you know what? I'm ready for a career change. I'm ready to do something different. I'm going to jump into something.
It's interesting you bring that up too, because one of my favorite quotes is, it's learners that will inherit the world, while the learned will find themselves perfectly equipped for a world that no longer exists. Mm-hmm. Right? So it doesn't matter if you're 50, 60, 70. Like the world is still going to change, and it's changing faster than ever now. So if you're not going to continue to be a learner and find that second career, that second part of your life, you're going to find yourself obsolete. So it's absolutely necessary.
Yeah, absolutely. And so it's like learning through video. And actually that was another interesting thing from that book. And I can't remember exactly what the book's name is, but they were talking about how you need to learn through different ways of learning. So like I resist learning from video, but I need to challenge myself to learn from video instead of just learning from my traditional way of reading. Because if I learn through alternative forms, things that I kind of resist, I probably have a better chance of actually absorbing the material.
Do you just get it a different way? Is that why?
I just can't stand watching. I can't stand watching video. I can't stand it. I can't stand listening to podcasts. I don't listen to anybody's podcast.
Really?
It all feels.
You're not even listening to the podcast we just did.
Oh, I just interviewed you. I paid attention this time. But I just find everything too slow. Even when you speed it up, I just would rather be absorbing it through reading.
Okay.
So that's another thing that most people don't know, is that I don't listen to any podcasts, and I can't stand watching video courses.
You know, it's interesting because I think we're on completely opposite sides of this one. I actually won't recommend books to people most of the time. I think you actually got a couple of books out of me on that podcast, but one of the things that I actually don't do is recommend books to people because I find a lot of people are just information gathering, right? So they'll read books and they'll take it and they'll get the knowledge, but they won't actually implement it. Right, and I think that's kind of a big thing for me that I've noticed. A lot of people that read a lot of books, they hear, oh, read more books, learn more from books, and you'll get where you want to go. And it's like knowledge isn't power. Implemented knowledge is power, right? And so that's one of the things that, like, for that reason, I know a lot of people that I've given them this amazing book and then nothing came from it. Yeah. So I actually stopped recommending books to people, and I actually stopped reading a lot of books. So I'm like the opposite side of that.
Yeah, the thing is, what people should do is go right to the course. I mean, go right to the person. Get on a phone call with somebody. Getting on a phone call with somebody for an hour is worth reading maybe 100 books. Maybe 100 books. Because I agree with you. You can just totally gather information. Yeah, I read 50 books last year, but I mean, it might not move you ahead in life. But when you go to a workshop, when you get coaching from somebody, then there's actual work being done.
Yeah.
That is important. I mean, I would almost say, like, don't buy another course, because if you're not going to actually do the work in the course, a lot of people accumulate all these courses. I mean, I know I bought a ton of courses and never used them.
Yeah.
And it would just frustrate me. It's like, unless I actually went to the event and did the work in real time, I don't think that anybody's going to get a lot out of other stuff, the courses that they buy. I mean, there's few and far between people will go and do them, but
it's funny you brought that up,
really need to go and do it in real time.
Yeah, it's funny you bring that up, though, because I kind of did a little bit of a review since it was like the end of the year, and I actually reviewed some of the courses that I had done over the last year, because I really did focus on a lot of my own learning, and there were a couple of them where I was like, I'll be honest, I kind of half-assed that one, right? And I actually went back and started to go through it again. I was like, wow, this is like really good. It was me. It was like my lack of like really putting in the effort and the execution on it that really kind of pulled me away from getting all the learning that I need to and the transformation that I need to from that course.
Yeah, on our podcast, you mentioned there was future Zander. A lot of people set these big goals and dreams, right? They, this is future me. I'm going to be successful, but then you actually have to take these steps.
Yeah.
And so a lot of people buy courses and buy books with the idea that it's going to turn them into the future person.
Yeah.
But then reality hits and you never find time to go into the course, especially if you have a full-time job. And so it's very difficult. And that's another reason why books are great, but that's why they for me, I've piled tons of books up at home. Amazon has made a lot more money from me than I've actually opened the books.
Do you ever just like show up at home and then there's like 3 more books and you're like, I don't even remember ordering those?
Oh yeah, totally. I ordered a lot over Christmas and you're like, oh, what's showing up today? I don't even know what book's going to show up.
It's like Christmas every day after Christmas, right? It's great.
Yeah,
it's
it is good.
Actually, I wanted to ask you, because I truly do consider you one of the you're one of the godfathers of this industry, and so I'd love to just ask you, when you were first starting off.
Well, that is hyperbole beyond, because it's like this industry's been around for like 100 years.
Sure. Well, okay, yeah, the modern digital industry. But let me just ask you, when you were first starting off, what were a couple of the biggest learning opportunities you had, or the biggest mistakes you had to make to kind of become the person that you are now?
Well, I think the biggest mistake I made was, ironically, not hiring a coach soon enough. Yeah. And when I hired a coach and when I set my ego aside, as Ryan Holiday says, the ego is the enemy, and you have to set your ego aside and go to somebody and say, listen, I don't actually know what I'm doing here. Can you help me out? And when I finally did that, then my results were exponential. They truly were. You go to somebody, it's like getting on the phone with somebody is so much more powerful than reading the book on here's how to do it, because reading the book got me pretty far. I actually, I bought this manual and it helped me make some money, and I read it again, it helped me make more money. But then when I hired the coach, that was the hands-on, customized coaching.
Well, they see the blind spots that you don't see, right? As much as you want to pretend you can see them and the books are going to help you, it's like if you get somebody that's looking at it from this angle, they're just going to see the stuff that you just can't.
Yeah, but you're getting, in a book and in a course, you're getting a system.
Yeah.
But with coaching, you're getting a system customized to you. So it's going to be beneficial that way.
Yeah. So, I mean, that's probably been the biggest learning lesson that you've had.
Right.
There's a lot of starting entrepreneurs, at least in my 6-figure group, people that are they're either in 9-to-5s or looking to get out of 9-to-5s, or they're just starting their coaching consulting businesses. What's the biggest piece of advice that you would give that audience?
Work Saturday morning. Absolutely. 100%.
Yeah.
Work Saturday morning. There's no distractions. I truly believe there's like this weird creative energy out there, and there's only a certain amount to go around. And if you try and do all of your work during regular work hours, but on Saturday morning, no one else is working, so you're in a totally different
absorb
state.
all of that creative energy.
Yeah, and also because most people, when they work on a Saturday morning, they're working outside of their regular workspace. And it's research proven, just like when you're in the shower, your frontal lobe operates differently. When you go for a walk, your frontal lobe operates differently, and it solves problems better. And so you're better able to solve problems in unique environments. Like if you ever travel to a seminar and you're in the airport, you're like, oh my goodness, I'm solving all these problems. And you're on the airplane, like I got so much work done. It's because you're outside of your regular workspace. So work on Saturday morning, and that'll get you way ahead. And then you just have to figure out, am I going to be the person that works for an hour in the morning before I go to work, or am I going to be the person that actually has the discipline to stay up at night and work for an hour? And you choose that time, and then you do it. So when I was a personal trainer and I wanted to be my own boss, I was waking up at 4:30 and working for 20 minutes every single day before getting on the bus, going downtown Toronto, training people. I'd work a little bit in the afternoon in between this. When you're a trainer, you kind of have this split shift like a waiter, and I had a little bit of time there. And then when I get home at 8 o'clock at night, I could barely keep my eyes open.
Right.
So that's what I did. And then I would work Saturday morning. And those 20 minutes added up over time.
I was going to say, that consistency of that 20 minutes every single day, just doing a little bit, it adds up and compounds over the course of months and years.
Another thing that you and I talked about on the podcast that's going to be out January 15th on earlytoriseradio.com is that you said, if you find that number one, how did you describe that number one thing you had to do?
So it's the one thing, and so this is courtesy of Gary Keller's The One Thing, but it's the one thing that if you did it, everything else would become easier or unnecessary. Most of the time, it's that one thing that's like, it's what I call your big cojones goal.
Yeah.
Right. So it's like the one action that it takes some balls to do, but if you do it, everything else becomes easier or unnecessary.
Right. And so I would do that between 4:30 and 10 to 5 every morning because I only had time to do one thing.
Yeah.
So you're going to do that most important thing. And it's much like, when people get married and they have that first child, and all of a sudden that just totally changes their schedule.
Yeah.
And some people use it as the excuse to go off the rails, while other people use that first child or the second or third to become more effective. It's like all of a sudden I have less time, and now it's just like, oh, now I need to say no to all this junk. And you no longer let Parkinsons Law, which is that time expands to fill the work expands to fill the time allotted for it. Now you don't have a lot of time, and so it's the same sort of thing. When you only have that 20 minutes, what I've actually found is that when some people are finally able to quit their jobs, they become unproductive.
Right, because they have all this time to fill, and then they fill it with crap.
Yeah,
frankly.
exactly.
Yeah.
And so you are in a good spot there. And when I was a personal trainer, what I did, eventually I was able to, and you're not going to be able to do this in most full-time jobs, but if you have some flexibility, do this. Try and then get like an afternoon off. So my first thing was, I had a client who trained Thursday afternoon. They were like, we're moving out of town. So I'm like, okay, I'm not going to fill that spot. And the next thing you know, I had from 1 p.m. till 4 p.m. every Thursday. And in those 3 hours of blocked and batch time, I was able to move ahead. And that block or batch of 3 hours is actually going to be multiple times more effective than 6 blocks of 30 minutes.
Yeah.
So you want to look for an opportunity, an opening as soon as you can, where you can really sit down, dive in,
and get into the deep work, the stuff that's really valuable.
Yeah, create that course that's going to allow you to then go, okay, well now I don't have to work any afternoons, and so on and so forth. And there's one last thing that I teach everybody is to do a time journal, and a time journal will give you 3 things. The first and most important thing that doing a time journal will give you, actually I should explain what a time journal is. Time journal is where it's like a food journal. So basically you take a piece of paper, and you can actually get this at craigballantyne.com/free gift. Scroll down to the bottom where there's 3 gifts on that page, and the bottom one has the time journal in it. And if you go to the time journal, it's just a day split into 20 minutes at a time, and you write down what you're doing and how you're feeling in 20-minute blocks. Now, I know that sounds tedious, but do it for 1 or 2 days, and you identify 3 things. And the first one is the most important. It's called magic time.
Yep.
It's when you are most productive. So what I found was early in the morning, between 5 and 6 o'clock in the morning, I can write 3 times as much as I could at any other time of day. So now you're tripling your productivity. Now, you might not be like me. You might be a night owl. You might be from 10 till 11 o'clock, or you might be from 10 a.m. till noon. You might just be like the most effective. And then what you need to do is block that time off. And I like to say protect that time. Like
make it non-negotiable.
Like my dog protects its dog bowl when he's eating, right? Like you're not getting anywhere near this time. So you don't take calls. You don't do email. You don't do anything that would eat away at your productivity. And it's going back to that one thing. I mean, if you just block those 2 hours and focused on your number one priority in those 2 hours, you could literally not have to work the rest of the day because everything else is just fluff.
Right.
And you take a look at
and most people put their priority on, like, if they got a call from someone, they got to take that first. They got a new email that comes in, they got to take that first. And it's just not true.
No. You go back to some of the greatest figures in history, like Charles Dickens, Charles Darwin's, Beethoven. What these people would do is work in a block of 3 to 4 hours, and that was it. And then they would really actually walk around their cities for the rest of the day.
Yep.
Thinking about, okay, what work am I going to do tomorrow? Thinking about solving problems, coming up with new characters and stuff like that. And it was really interesting to see how people worked centuries ago that were really productive, and what we can learn from that going today instead of being distracted by a million things.
Yeah, I 100% agree.
Yeah, so that's the first thing you learn is magic time. The second thing you learn are the hurdles that you have, what Eben Pagan calls OCD loops. Eben Pagan is really a godfather of coaching.
Yeah, okay.
And so he used this phrase in one of the few videos I've actually watched. An OCD loop is where you go onto the internet, and I used to have the one where I'd go to check my sales stats, I'd check my email, I'd check Facebook, I'd check ESPN, and then you'd circle right back up to the top.
It was habitual. You just go through it.
Yeah, and the next thing you know, it's like 90 minutes has gone by, and you're like, what rabbit hole have I gone down? And so, you'll realize, at 10 o'clock every morning I end up on the internet, and you're like, well, why am I doing that? Well, I'm kind of hungry or thirsty or tired. Well, what can you do to circumvent that? And so that will stop you. And so you'll identify, okay, here's my productivity block, and then here's where I'm, lazy. So maybe I should just go for a walk. Maybe I should schedule meetings. Maybe I should
just break the loop. However you can break the loop.
Yeah, get out of it. Find something else to do that's more productive. Maybe it's your exercise time or something. So that's the second thing. And then the third thing that you'll discover is your value. Value. So let's say that you're making $80,000 a year. $80,000 a year means you're making $40 an hour. And so if you're working 8 hours a day, making $80,000 a year, your hourly value is $40 an hour. So now you take a look, if you want to do the leap into being your own boss, you go, well, if I'm worth at least $40 an hour, should I be going to Kinko's and doing photocopying? Should I be going to the UPS store? Well, those are $10 an hour tasks. Yeah. And this is tough when you're just making that transition. You want to save money, but you need to go and find somebody who will do this stuff for you, because you shouldn't be doing anything that you could pay.
Zander, are you really doing your moving?
I could not believe that.
And I was like, yeah. He's like, you're not a broke ass college student. I don't think you said ass, but in my mind you did.
Yeah.
You're not a broke ass college student.
You didn't learn that in college.
You shouldn't be doing that anymore, because like me tweaking my back kind of, that affects you mentally, that affects you physically, that affects a lot of things. And it made me less productive for probably a week afterwards.
Yeah, and you know what? When my mother visits me in Toronto, even my sister, who's very successful, when she sees like the stuff that I don't do, they give me the stink eye, right? And they're like, how can you not, even go and get your own groceries? And
Amazon Fresh. How
can you not cook? How can you not clean? And I'm like, I wasn't put here to cook or clean. Yeah. And I mean, quite frankly, it'd be dangerous for the world if I was trying to cook. Things would be burnt down. And so I don't do any of that stuff. I'm happy to get rid of it. And there's other people who love doing it.
Yep.
So I feel like, how could I deprive somebody of cooking for me?
I'm getting rid of jobs.
Who am I?
Getting rid of jobs.
Right. Who am I to be so selfish to deprive somebody the love of cooking for me? And so,
I like that.
Yeah, so that's how I look at things, and that's how you have to look at your time. So you figured out your value, that you're not doing anything for under $40 an hour. You're going to find somebody else to do it, and you're going to open up more time to do high value, high leverage work, because that is what you're teaching people to do.
Yeah,
yeah,
absolutely. So I think you have a coaching call that you're supposed to be on right now. So we probably
very
need to wrap,
soon.
we probably need to wrap this up pretty soon.
A high leverage call, because it's leading my team to go and create a new product so that we can help more people, just like you guys want to go out there and do.
So do you want to let everybody know where they can see the podcast again, or where they can listen to the podcast?
Podcast is going to be January 15th on earlytoriseradio.com, also on iTunes. We'd love it if you listen to it, love it, share it, give us a rating on iTunes. You'll share it with them as well.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'll make sure to post that in the group, you guys. You guys will all see it. Don't worry.
Yeah, and we're going to do a ton of stuff together as we go forward. Lots of coaching, lots of sharing that. And you guys at Early to Rise will hear a lot more about Zander. He's already had one article on earlytorise.com about how he bookends his morning routine, which is a really fantastic article and a great concept, one that I use in a slightly different way, but absolutely must be done. Your morning starts the night before, and that's what you taught in that article.
Yeah.
And he's going to have more articles on there about selling, about productivity, all this great stuff. So earlytorise.com and Early to Rise Radio for the podcast. And
Beautiful.
Where can people check out your masterclass?
So for everybody out there, if you go to zanderfryer.com/go, we've got our most recent training on how to turn your knowledge, expertise, or passion into a six-figure business in just a couple short months, even if you've never started a business before. So feel free to go to zanderfryer.com/go, or you can follow me on Instagram, Twitter, whatever, ZanderFryer.
Yes, awesome. And then one last thing for everybody in the San Diego area, Zander and I are going to be co-hosting our first ever co-hosted Perfect Life Workshop, which is my version of a coaching program, one day in San Diego on March 15th. And we might do another one on March 18th as well. So you can just send me an email at craig@godfather.com if you want more information on that. So I guess I am...
Godfather's in the name.
I know. So I guess I'm the godfather of something, and this has been a lot of fun. Good
Awesome.
stuff, sir. Thank you,
Craig.
everybody. We will see you very soon.